Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. Today, we complete 5 years of demonetization. 8 November, 8 o'clock, 2016. 5 years back when our good Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, announced demonetization. Now, I'm going to talk to you about demonetization. I've got a very eminent guest who's going to talk to you about demonetization. But before that, I wanted to talk more, not about demonetization per se, but I wanted to talk about the black economy. Is there so much of black money that is there? Why didn't we get those black money back? Is black money something that can be actually stopped, taken out of an economy? Who creates black money? Does the businessman create black money, or the politician helps a businessman to create black money? Now, these are questions we will dwell on. And I have Dr. Arun Kumar. Dr. Arun Kumar is an authority on black economy. He's written series of bestsellers. And I don't think there is anybody in India, at least to my mind, who is better than him as far as the black economy is concerned. So let's talk to Dr. Arun Kumar. Let's understand black economy and let's understand what demonetization actually did to the black economy. Let's get right into the show. Namaskar. Thank you so much for joining me, Professor Kumar. Thank you so much. Sir, the first question I want to ask you, 5 years of demonetization. Let me start from the beginning. Has demonetization done any good for this country?
So, we should measure it by the sort of goals that were set for it. And the 3 goals that were very prominently set by the PM in his speech on 8th of November. First was to check the black income generation, so what you call black money. And second was to check counterfeit currency, which is used for financing terrorism. So these were the 3 goals that were set. Now, why the demonetization would not affect the black money and the black income generation process is very clear, because black money is only 1% of the black wealth. So, if the economy has 3 to 400 lakh crores of black wealth, then black cash would be hardly 3 to 4 lakh crores. Now, how do we generate this black cash? What we do is we first do an activity and we earn income there. And after earning the income, we do our consumption. And then from consumption, the balance is saved. And that is invested to earn a return. And that becomes part of the wealth. So we have income, consumption, saving, investment, and wealth. Now we are holding the wealth to be able to earn a return. So why would I hold it in cash? So that's why of the portfolio of assets that I have, 1% would be cash. That is true of the white economy. That's also true of the black economy. Okay.
Correct.
So if we had managed to squeeze out the black cash, then that would have been only 1% of the black wealth. And we know that 99% came back, and we know where that 1% was lying. So the 100% was known. So that means we couldn't squeeze out even that 1% of the black wealth, which was held in the form of cash. Second is the black income generation. That's a process. Suppose I'm a doctor, I see 50 patients, I declare the income of 30, but not the 20. Then the payment by the 20 becomes my black income. So therefore, this is called under-invoicing. Now, all businesses indulge in under-invoicing and over-invoicing to generate black income. Now, that has nothing to do with cash. So therefore, the black income generation process continues. So even if you'd squeezed out that 1% of the black cash, within 1 year, that much amount of cash would have been again generated. So neither black income generation stopped, nor did the black wealth get demobilized. So therefore, this idea that we would be able to check the black economy, that did not happen. Second is counterfeit currency. The government had announced there's 400 crores of black counterfeit currency. Now, out of the 15.44 lakh crore of cash that existed at that point in high denomination note, if it is 400 crores, that's chicken feed. That's 0.001% of the total currency. Now, you don't demonetize the entire currency just to get 400 crores out. And we know that within a week, the new 2,000 rupee notes started coming. And the reason is very simple. There are state actors involved in printing fake currency. Now, those state actors can print the old notes. They can print the new notes also. So therefore, the fake currency also is not going to disappear. Third is terrorist financing. This counterfeit currency is used for terrorist financing. Now, terrorist financing can be done in a variety of ways. You can use dollars, you can use hawala, you can use gold, you can do gun smuggling, you can do narcotic drug smuggling, to finance your terrorist activity. So terrorism is also not got affected. So none of the goals set out by the Prime Minister were actually fulfilled. So they changed the goalpost. They started saying that we'll have a cashless economy. Now, yes, we can have a less cash economy, but a cashless economy will take an enormous amount of time. Even the US is far more advanced than us, but it's still not cashless economy. Okay, so a less cash economy is possible. But the point is that you see, at that point, we had about 15.44 lakh crore in the high denomination currency note and total of 18 lakh crore in the currency in circulation. So that constituted about 12% of GDP. So currency to GDP ratio is 12%. What is it today? It's 14.5%. We now are about 28 lakh crore instead of 18 lakh crore. So it's not that we are not using more of Paytm. It's not that we are not using more of the UPI, etc. Okay, more of credit card, debit card, but still the currency is increasing. Okay, and very simply, as I was saying, black does not mean cash. That was the fatal mistake, because the Prime Minister thought, and the public also thought, that all the black is cash. So if we squeeze out the cash, then the black would go away. But as I said, black does not mean cash. So the fatal mistake was to assume that black means cash.
Sir, can I ask you a straight question? Sir, was demonetization a result of lack of knowledge?
Yes, lack of knowledge about the black economy. If the black economy had been understood, then it would have been clear that demonetization would not be able to take out the black economy from the country. And I've been writing on it since 1984,
Yes.
that the demonetization should not be done. I wrote in 1984, then in my Black Economy book, etc. So the large number of people, even including many journalists on November 8, 2016, felt that black means cash. Okay, so this was a general, perception. So there are many misperceptions about the black economy. One of them is black means cash. Second is that black is held abroad. If black is held abroad, then demonetization will not affect that. You'll have to demonetize the dollar, or you have to demonetize the Swiss franc. Otherwise, how would demonetization here affect your black holdings abroad? Third misperception is that the black economy generated by the informal sector. Now, most of the unorganized sector incomes are way below the taxable limit. So whether they're captured or not captured, they're not black. Okay. Most of the black incomes are generated in the organized sector, But we all believe that it's in the informal sector, it's the unorganized sector. Most of the wages, are way below. So, for instance, I keep quoting the Delhi Socioeconomic Survey. The Delhi Socioeconomic Survey of 2018, before the pandemic, shows that 90% families spend less than 25,000 rupees per month. Okay, which means they are below the taxable limit, right? And only 98% was spending less than 50,000 rupees. And given the concessions, etc., even they would not fall in the taxable. So that's why the Prime Minister last year said that only 1.5 crore Indians are effective taxpayers as far as direct taxes are concerned. Okay, so our base is very narrow because we have massive disparity. Rich are earning a lot of money and the poor are not earning enough to be able to pay taxes. So therefore, the problem that we face is that we are got misperception about the black economy. Many misperceptions are there. So we take the wrong steps. And this step of demonetization came on November 8th because you see the government had been trying to tackle the black economy, because in the 2014 election it was said that we know where the money is and there is enough money outside that we can bring it within 1 month and that it'll be enough to pay every family 15 lakhs of rupees, and that didn't happen. And Nitish Kumar used that in the Bihar election to castigate the government and say it was a Chunavi Jumla, and therefore, he got a positive message out of that. Now the UP elections are coming, and therefore they needed something big. So they tried the income declaration scheme, hoping that people would voluntarily declare their black incomes. But that scheme failed also. So by September, the scheme closed and hardly any money had come into that. So the government needed something big. And the government also believed that the public will buy the logic that black means cash. So that's why in the UP election, the benefit came. The political benefit came, even though the economy got damaged very badly.
And sir, all of this huge policy decision of demonetization taken without actually doing any research, doing any study, talking to experts, people like you had written about black economy decades back. Was it all done like that, sir?
So, there was a group of people who had been recommending this demonetization, other things, and within the BJP also they had set up a committee to estimate the size of black economy and how much money would be lying abroad. So there was a feeling, that demonetization could be one possible step. But if you see, when the government came on the day one, the first thing it did was to set up the Supreme Court monitored SIT. Okay. And then after that, it brought the black money bill, and it did various things on the other Benami Act and so on and so forth. So it was trying to show that it was trying to do something on the black economy, but none of them were yielding results. So they needed to have something big bang, and they thought that this was the big bang which would pay them political dividend as well. And that is the reason why they went in for it. So even though apparently Raghuram Rajan, the then RBI governor, had been asked, and he had said that it is not going to work. It's exactly the way in 1978 when Morarji Bhai had done the demonetization. I.G. Patel, the RBI governor, then had given in writing that demonetization is not the way to tackle black economy. Okay, and yet Morarji Bhai went ahead. So these are political judgments. So the political judgment was that this will pay us political dividend. So it was not maybe necessarily an economic judgment as much as a political judgment. No. So as I said, what does demonetization do? The idea is that black means cash. That means all the black is in cash, right? So if I squeeze out the cash, the black will also go. Okay, that is the idea underlying demonetization. But because black does not mean cash, black operates in a variety of ways. We have to distinguish between the income and the wealth. As I said in the beginning, how do I generate black income? That's a process. And what happens as a result of that is that my black wealth accumulates, right? And of the black wealth, cash is only a tiny part, less than 1%. So by demonetization, I only affect less than 1% of the black wealth. But we know that all the money came back, so that 1% also did not get affected. And the process of black income generation by under-invoicing, over-invoicing, that continues. Therefore, demonetization did not affect the black economy even by 0.1%. Forget even 1%. Okay. Yeah. Therefore, it was an utter failure as far as the black economy is concerned. Okay. Correct. Now, as I said, the other goals also were not fulfilled, whether it be terrorism or whether it be, counterfeit currency. So this was a misstep which damaged the economy, because you see, what is cash? Cash is something which I don't eat. Cash is something which I use to circulate income. So I go to the shop and I buy something there and I pay cash. The shopkeeper uses that to pay the wholesaler. Wholesaler uses that to pay the manufacturer. The manufacturer pays the wages. So money keeps circulating. Now, when you take cash out of the system, then the circulation stops. So income generation stops, especially in the unorganized sector, which can only operate in cash. It cannot operate through banks. It cannot operate through credit card, debit card, and other electronic means. So the unorganized sector got damaged very badly as a result of demonetization. But you also saw that malls were empty, wholesale markets were. So therefore, the trade and manufacturing both got affected very adversely as a result. And therefore, the economy slowed down. Now, unfortunately, our GDP data does not capture the decline in the unorganized sector, because the GDP data depends only on the organized sector data. So therefore, our GDP kept on reflecting the organized sector, which was not so badly damaged as the unorganized sector. And that's why the government claimed that the highest growth rate of the decade was during the demonetization year. Whereas everybody could see visibly that markets were empty, people are not buying, people are standing in queues at the banks to try and collect cash, etc. So there's just no way that year could have been the highest growth rate year for the decade, at 8%. But yes, slowly, when the unorganized sector got hit, 94% income got hit, then demand started getting hit. When demand got hit, the consumption went down. And when consumption went down, the investment went down. And therefore, the rate of growth started falling. And that's why just before the pandemic, our growth rate had fallen to 3.1%. From 8%, it had fallen to 3.1%. So the economic impact continued. And unfortunately for us, demonetization, within 7-8 months of that, the GST came. And GST again impacted the unorganized sector very adversely. And therefore, there was a further adverse impact. And now the pandemic has impacted the unorganized sector. So one after the other, the unorganized sector is getting impacted. And you can see that, for instance, now during the pandemic, we have shifted considerably towards using e-commerce rather than going to the neighborhood shop. So the neighborhood shop businesses are closing down, or they're making losses, etc. And eventually they may close down. So demand has shifted from the unorganized sector to the organized sector. And that is what is creating the problem for the economy's revival.
Sir, does black cash exist in India?
So what is black cash? That's the question of definition. So as I was explaining, black cash is a part of your black wealth. So black wealth is generated after you've generated a black income. And then the savings out of that you do, okay, that becomes part of your wealth. Huh? So there are a lot of undervalued assets in the economy, like inventory in businesses, like real estate, like gold, like people take money abroad through flight of capital, and 30% of that is round trip back. So black money is only 1% of the black wealth. Okay. So in that sense, the people who are holding cash, which is demobilized out of your black savings, that is black money. So black money definitely exists. It's only 1% of the black wealth. The black wealth is far, far larger than the black cash that we are talking about, So because of black income generation, just like because we have white income generation, so we have white wealth. Similarly, we have black income generation, so we have black wealth. And because of the black wealth, has 1% cash, white economy also you have 1%. So suppose you are earning 1 lakh rupee a month. Now, of that 1 lakh rupee a month, it means 12 lakh rupee in the year. Correct. Now, are you going to hold 12 lakh rupee cash in hand? No, you're only going to hold 10, 20,000 rupees, right? So correct. Of the annual income, you're going to hold only maybe 1% or 0.5%, of it as cash in the year, right? So you always hold a very tiny percentage of your income or wealth as cash. Okay. Correct. So that cash, if it is out of your black income, becomes your black money.
Correct. Sir, so these figures that we hear, 5 lakh rupees to every, or 15 lakh rupees to every bank account at all these, are these figures right? Do we have so much black money?
So, my estimate is that in I have made an estimate based on various black economy estimates from 1955-56 up to 1995-96. And then I projected that further to 2012-13. And my estimate was that black income generation in 2012-13 was 62% of GDP. That means it was at current, suppose it has not increased further because I have not done further analysis, then at the current rate, it would be 144 lakh crores of rupees every year generated as a black income. Okay. So black income means those incomes which the organized sector and the rich people are generating, which they are not declaring to the tax authorities. Okay. So that is what black income is. Now, out of that, you demobilize a part of it as black cash. And therefore, that would be very substantial. But of the 28 lakh crore of currency in circulation at the moment, it might be 5-6 lakh crores, which could be called black cash, okay, which has been demobilized out of your black income generation process, okay. So it's substantial, 5-6 lakh crore, but the black wealth would be 500 to 600 lakh crores, and black income generation annually would be about 144 lakh crores. So these are astounding figures, and you can see the kind of the black income generated in every business, like for instance, GST, the large number of firms that have been created only to create fake input credit, So every day there are new reports of how fake companies are being discovered. There are shell companies, then people are using Hawala to take the money abroad and then round trip it back through the Mauritius route or the Singapore route. So there's a vast amount of activity in the black economy, which is resulting in the black income generation process and the black wealth creation process.
If demonetization is not the solution, how do we get black cash back to the economy?
So, the point is that if you can stop the black income generation process in the country, then its going abroad would also come down. Because it is out of my estimate is that India lost the opportunity cost of about $2 trillion between 1948 and 2012-13, for which we tried to make an estimate, And our estimate was that of this, 10% goes abroad. So 90% of the black income stays within the country, only 10% is going abroad. And of the 10% that goes abroad, 30 to 40% is round trip back into India through the stock market, Mauritius route, Singapore route, etc., etc. So this is the process by which the black income generation is taking place. Now, as long as you have these tax havens and the capacity to, do the round tripping, etc., it provides an easy route that you generate black income and then you can round trip it back into India and convert it into your share market or into your white activity, etc. So this kind of activity, that is taking place in every business, It is taking place in every profession, whether it be lawyers or doctors or teachers, chartered accountants, whether it be your businesses which are doing export import, because in export import there's a lot of under invoicing, over invoicing that goes on, to take your black income abroad. So in every activity that we see, there's a black income generation. Now the unorganized sector incomes are way below the taxable limit, so therefore bulk of the black income is generated in the organized sector.
So if you assume that demonetization didn't help black cash, didn't help to bring back black cash, but sir, can we say that demonetization at least made some kind of an impact in black money generation, black income generation?
No, as I said, black income generation is a process.
Correct.
So that process works through under invoicing, over invoicing.
Correct. Has it come down, sir? Sorry.
No, it because you see, demonetization has nothing to do with the under invoicing, over invoicing. It only is trying to remove the cash from circulation. But as far as the process is concerned, suppose I am producing textile and I buy 1 crore worth of cotton. So I will claim that I have bought 1.5 crore worth of cotton and 50 lakh I'll siphon out. Similarly, I like take Satyam. In that Satyam's case, there were supposed to be 53,000 employees, but it was found that 12,000 were fictitious employees. Similarly, it was discovered in NDMC in Delhi some 20 years back, that where they were claiming that there were, some like 50,000 employees, there were only 37,000 employees.
Correct.
So 13,000 employees' income was being siphoned out as black income. So you inflate your cost and you show lower revenue. So suppose you're selling textile, you're selling 100 yards of textile, but you'll claim I've sold only 90 yards of textile. And you're selling at 10 rupees a square yard, but you claim that I'm only selling at 9.5 rupees a square yard. So you're skimming off the revenue. So you skim off the revenue and you skim off the cost, and that's how you generate black income. This has nothing to do with demonetization.
Correct.
Okay?
Correct, sir.
It is a process.
Sir, my question is, sorry, I'm just dwelling into it because for my understanding.
Yeah, sure.
This when you under invoice, you make that 50 lakh rupees, which you keep for yourself. You use it as black income. What do you do with this 50 lakh rupees, sir?
See, you plow it back into business. So it's not as if you're holding it under the pillow.
So how does this cash go back into the business?
No, so the way of siphoning out is that you create firms. So you buy from one firm and the other firm, so you create shell companies, and via shell companies you continue to do other business, you transfer it, So it's not that it's sitting idle. It's not that you get that 50 lakh rupee of cash which you put under the pillow. You use that in businesses, you invest it somewhere, you put it somewhere else. So it's not that the old image was that black meant that you had put it under the pillow or under the mattress or in the ground, in a pitcher and so on. It's now all in circulation. So just like the white economy is in circulation, the black economy is also in circulation. But the only thing is,
if I invest in a company, sir, wouldn't I have to pay taxes?
No. So the point is, again, the way you would put your money in, see, like for instance, when you set up a company, okay, what you can do is you can over invoice your capital. So you're buying machinery worth 100 crores, but you'll claim that you have bought a machinery worth 150 crores. Okay. And therefore that 50 crore again is siphoned out, So therefore there's this whole process of siphoning out, is going around in the economy, and it's not easy to catch it, because, the whole process is so opaque. Through shell companies and so on, you have devised with. So there are very clever chartered accountants, very clever income tax lawyers who suggest methods by which you can do all these things, So the whole mechanism is in operation, in which the black income is in circulation. So what it suggests is that the actual economy is larger than the white economy. Correct. Because the black economy is also circulating. So you have more production than what the white economy is. Right? Correct. And you have more employment than what the white economy suggests, right? So it should be good. No, the problem is that much of the black income generation activity is like digging holes and filling holes. So what do you do in digging holes and filling holes? You set one person to dig a hole during the day, and at night you set another person to fill the hole. So next morning you have zero output but two incomes. Correct. So I call this activity without productivity. Okay. Correct. So you make a road, for instance. You don't put enough tar. The rains come, it gets washed away. And then you're repairing the same old road again and again rather than setting up new roads. And in the meanwhile, the vehicles that run on the road, they're potholed, their axles break down, they consume more fuel, etc. So there's inefficiency. So this process of black income generation results in massive inefficiency and policy failure. So, for instance, you are supposed to set up schools, but the money doesn't reach the ground. So the schools are not set up, so education is not coming. So money is shown to be spent, but the education is not coming. Similarly, in the case of health, similarly in the case of infrastructure. So there's massive inefficiency in the economy. So I've shown that as a result of black income generation and the inefficiency, the economy's rate of growth is 5% less than what it could be. Now, if from the 70s, when the black economy became more than 10%, if we are losing average of 5%, today the Indian economy would be 8 times larger. So we would be at $20 trillion, the larger than the US economy, okay? And each one of us would be 8 times more prosperous. So instead of having $2,000 per capita, we would have $16,000 per capita. So we'd be a rich country, you know? So
Correct.
black income generation generates jobs, it generates, output, but as compared to the potential of the economy, we are 1/8 of where we could have been. You know?
Correct. But
So
sir,
there's a real loss.
then I want to ask you another question. Sir, in real world, in practical world, can you
Yeah.
get rid of black economy or black income generation?
So yes, I mean, you have economies that are very, very clean economies, you know, like for instance, Scandinavian countries, New Zealand, etc. Then you have Germany, which is a much larger economy. There also the black income generation is hardly 2 to 3% of GDP. So you have different kinds of economies in the world. It all depends on what the national consensus is. If the national consensus is that paying taxes is good because it's coming back to us in the form of services, then people will voluntarily do so. Like in Sweden, you used to have 85% highest tax rate in 1985, and yet there was only 1% of GDP as black income because people recognize that taxes come back to them in the form of good services. Okay, so suppose you think of education. You can either pay for it privately or you can pay for it publicly. It's a national thing. Now, if your public education is good, then people will not go to the private sector. Okay, so bad public education is a prerequisite for the private sector to thrive in the education sector. Okay.
Correct.
So therefore, our public education has deteriorated. Our government schools used to be good schools in the 50s and 60s, and they started deteriorating in the 70s. Similarly, our public universities were considered excellent, our IITs were considered excellent, and slowly they're getting privatized now.
Correct.
So the point is that it's a national consensus. If we decide, yes, that we need to pay taxes so that we can prosper as a nation, then we'll do it. If we decide, no, we are not going to do that, okay, we are going to cut taxes, we are going to not pay taxes, etc., then the black income generation will proliferate. So it all depends on the politics of the country.
Correct.
The politics of the country will determine whether we can check the black income generation or not.
If you improve the infrastructure, people would love to pay the money, so that therefore the black income generation will be lesser rather than doing in demonetization. Absolutely correct.
So that's chicken and egg. But that's chicken and egg, because the governments that come, they're not abstract. They are coming out of the political parties that exist, and the political parties are in league with the businessmen to generate black income. Okay.
Correct.
So black income generation proliferates because of illegality.
Correct.
So when the black economy goes up, it means illegality is going up. Now, why is illegality going up? Illegality is going up because of the fact that people have lost consensus. They feel that I can grab more for myself. So that consensus that existed in the 50s and 60s has broken down. So in the 50s, our black income generation was 4 to 5% of GDP, as estimated by Professor Kaldor in 1955-56. And that has risen to 62%. And that is because the political consensus broke down in the country, and every segment is trying to grab, for itself. So businesses have grabbed a huge amount for themselves, the organized businesses, and they're pushing, to grab more and more. So this political consensus has to be regained. And, it's like a frog in the well. If suppose, our top businessmen, earning say $20 billion, if the economy is 8 times bigger, they would be also $160 billion rather than $20 billion. Okay. So this frog in the well attitude of our business community, that, okay, let me make money wherever I can make at the moment. I don't know about the future, So it's a very short-sighted vision that is there in our politics, that's there with our businessmen, and that's with our elite class which governs the country.
Sir, then let me ask you a question, sir. Who is the creator of black economy? Is it the politician? Is it the businessman? Is it who creates this mindset?
So, I call it the triad. In 1985, I had written that there's a triad underlying the thing, because it's all dependent on illegality. Now, how can illegality occur systematically? Okay, it can only occur systematically if the policymaker, the businessman, and the executive are in league.
Correct.
So there's a triad which runs it. So the businessmen are generating the black and sharing with the politician and with the executive. Okay. Now, if one of the arm is broken, suppose the politician says, I'm not going to do this illegality, then it won't survive. If the executive says, we will implement the rules as they are, then it won't survive. If the businessman says that I'm not going to, participate in this illegality, no matter what you do, okay, then also. So therefore, it's a joint nexus between the corrupt businessmen, the corrupt political class, and the corrupt executive that propagates the black income generation process. So a change in consciousness is needed. Big reforms come only when there's a change in consciousness.
Absolutely.
That change in consciousness has to be that we have to all work for the common national good, rather than for our individual good. At the moment, there's a huge individualization. We are all working for our own individual good rather than to the common national good. So when the perception is that we have to work for the common national good, then things will begin to change.
Right. Sir, when it comes to black economy, what would be the percentage of corruption money in that economy?
So I have not estimated that separately as to what would be corruption. But yes, corruption is one aspect of the black income generation. So what is corruption?
Would that be a major aspect, sir? Sorry to interject, but just one question. Would that be a major aspect to the total economy?
See, one would have to estimate that, and since there's no separate estimate available, one cannot say that. But what is true is that what is corruption? Corruption means a quid pro quo, that I do something for you and you do something in return, whether in cash or in kind. Okay.
Correct.
So large part of the black income generation has nothing to do with corruption. Like I gave the example of the doctor who sees 50 patients and declares the income of only 30.
Correct.
Now nobody is bribing him to do that. Similarly, a teacher who's doing tuition, right? Nobody is bribing him to hide the tuition income, right? Similarly, take a businessman who does under invoicing, over invoicing, or in export and import, right? Nobody is bribing him to do that, right? So the point is that they are all trying to generate an extra income over and above what they can generate legally. Okay. Now, why does that drive come? That comes because you see there is a feeling of being a social injustice. So every fixed income group, a person feels that businessmen are getting away, so why not me? So there's a feeling of, Mr. Ambani probably feels there's social injustice in the country, and the man who sleeps homeless in the streets, he also feels there's a social injustice. So the feeling of injustice is widespread, and that's why the commitment to society is less. When the commitment to society is higher, then we all begin to think more nationally rather than individually.
We all know that demonetization has affected the informal economy. But is it only informal economy that got affected because of demonetization? What about formal economy?
So formal economy also got affected immediately. If you notice that malls were empty, wholesale markets were empty, people could not go to factory to work because they were trying to collect cash, etc. But the point is the formal economy could pick up very quickly because it can operate outside cash also. It can use bank accounts, it can use debit cards, credit cards, electronic payment, etc. Right? So it could recover. The unorganized sector could not recover that quickly, and the cash shortage continued for 8-9 months, because what you had printed over 10 years, you cannot replace in 7-8-9 months, right? So the cash shortage continued, and that continued to affect the unorganized sector. And then before they could recover, the GST hit them, So the unorganized sector got hit very badly, and GST actually benefited the organized sector because the demand shifted from the unorganized sector to the organized sector. Where the unorganized sector was not getting input credit, the organized sector was getting input credit. Unorganized sector, if it sold, had reverse charge had to be paid. Whereas the organized sector, when it sold, it had the benefit of the input credit. So therefore, the organized sector benefited out of the GST. Unorganized sector got hit very badly. So what happened during demonetization to the unorganized sector further got damaged as a result of GST, and then now because of the pandemic. Okay,
sir. My last question is, sir. We still face the impact of demonetization. How long is India going to face the impact of demonetization, which is 2016?
So, as I said, it's overlying with one and the other thing. So what started off with demonetization and the impact on the unorganized sector, very quickly the GST took over and impacted the unorganized sector further. Okay. So the impact on the unorganized sector is multiple. First demonetization, then GST, then the NBFC crisis, and then the government's attempt to force digitization. Now, the unorganized sector is very tiny. As you know, that the micro sector is 6 crore units, and small and medium are 6 lakh units, and the large, which are in the stock market, are 6,000 units. So 100 factor of 100 from the large to the small and medium, and from small and medium to the micro sector. So of the MSME sector, the micro sector is 99% of the units. Okay, small and medium is only 1%. Okay, so therefore this impact that has been continuing. This micro sector is the one that is getting affected, and that is then affecting the overall demand in the economy. Okay, because 94% are employed there in that unorganized sector, and in the micro sector, 97.5% are employed of the MSME. Now, if we're damaging the micro sector, then we are going to continue, and then we've made wrong policy choices. For instance, we have lumped all the MSME together. Now, micro is very different from small and medium. So small and medium take all the benefit, and micro doesn't get the benefit. So micro is not able to recover. So micro, in some sense, is a residual sector. So, for instance, if I lose my work in a rural area because there is no work there, so I come to the urban area, I do head load work, I push a thela, I drive a rickshaw, I do some residual work at a very low income, right? Now,
Correct.
These are the people who are in crisis because employment generation is not taking place. Okay, so we need to create mass employment, for the people. Then only will things begin to look up. But our policies are all designed for the large sector or small and medium. And especially during the pandemic, we are going in for supply side policies, which means we are giving benefit to the businesses. And in the MSME, what have we done? We have lumped all the micro, small, and medium together. Now, these are all the incorrect policies to revive the unorganized sector. So, what does unorganized sector need? Unorganized sector lacks capital. Unorganized sector lacks marketing. Unorganized sector lacks technology. So, we need to provide them in a collective fashion to the micro sector to revive it. And GST must be reformed so that it becomes a last point tax. Then the sort of disadvantage of the micro sector in terms of the input credit, that will disappear. And then they will be able to face at a equal level with the large sector and the medium sector. So these are the reforms that are needed so that the unorganized sector begins to turn around, which at the moment is declining.
Professor Kumar, it's so enlightening to talk to you, as always. Really enlightening to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining
Thanks
me on
a
this
lot.
show. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay.